to Just Asia, AHRC TV's weekly human rights program. These are the headlines. UN Security Council pushes Burma to end Rohingya violence. Teenager gang raped in Nepal and family beaten to prevent complaints. Prison riot in the Philippines kills 2. Declassified US embassy documents reveal Indonesian military involvement in the 1965-66 killings. Eviction drive in India results in death of infant. 3 urgent appeals from Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and Indonesia. Welcome to AHRC TV's Just Asia. I'm Annie Lin. This week, Just Asia begins with Burma, which has been called on by the UN Security Council on Monday to rein in its military campaign in Rakhine state and allow hundreds of thousands of Muslim Rohingya to return. In an unanimous statement backed by China, the Council strongly condemned the violence that has forced more than 600,000 Rohingya to flee across the border to Bangladesh, such as killing, sexual violence, and burning of homes and property. It called on the government to ensure no further violence by the military, to restore civilian administration and apply the rule of law. The statement included most of the demands contained in a draft resolution presented last month by Britain and France, but which ran into strong opposition from China, a supporter of Burma's former ruling junta. China had indicated it was willing to resort to its veto power to block a resolution, but Beijing finally agreed to a statement during negotiations, diplomats said. Council members called for full access for humanitarian aid workers to Rakhine and said the government must address the root causes of the crisis by allowing equal access to full citizenship. The statement encourages UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres to appoint a special advisor on the crisis and report back in 30 days. Next, in Nepal, a girl was gang raped and her family beaten to prevent them from complaining. On October 29th, a 17-year-old Muslim girl was on her way to fetch grass in Parsa district when she was kidnapped at knife point by Mukhtar Ansari and Ansari Babu. She was taken to a nearby sugarcane field and the 2 youths taped her mouth shut and then took turns to rape and beat her. Their 3 other friends were also involved. After raping the girl, the group took her to one of the friends' houses, which was in a secluded place away from the village. She was kept there for the entire night. The next day, 3 of the youth took the girl to a hospital for treatment and then dropped her at the village. On the evening of October 30th, Mukhtar and his friend Rustam went to the girl's home and warned her not to speak of the incident. They even threatened to rape her sister if she filed any police complaint. Immediately afterwards, Mukhtar's father, Jumaddin Ansari, who was the ward chairperson, came with his 3 other sons and started beating the girl's family. The girl's sister-in-law and niece were hurt in the confrontation, her sister-in-law sustaining a fractured arm. Meanwhile, the police initially refused to register the first information report. Though the area police station in Patawa Sugauli lodged a written complaint on November 2nd, the police have not made any arrests. In the Philippines, a riot at an overcrowded prison killed 2 inmates and injured at least 10 others. The Quezon City Jail, just outside the capital city of Manila, hosts more than 3,400 inmates in a space built for 800. This is largely due to President Duterte's war on drugs. Prisoners are squeezed in like sardines and have to take turns sleeping in whatever open spaces are available. According to prison authorities, an overturned bucket of water led to a fight between 2 gangs. The violence began when members of one gang were rushing to carry a prisoner to the health clinic while he was suffering a seizure. In their haste, they kicked over a bucket of water onto the sleeping members of a rival gang. The ensuing riot resulted in the death of one of the prisoners caught up in the fighting and killed the man having the seizure. Authorities have pledged to construct new facilities at the site to reduce overcrowding, but they have cautioned that it cannot be done overnight. Philippines jails were ranked the 3rd most congested in the world even before Mr. Duterte assumed power last year. Moving to Indonesia, recently declassified US embassy documents in Jakarta show that US officials were aware of the scale and savagery of the 1965-66 killings of the alleged communists. The 39 documents make up a cache of some 30,000 pages of embassy paperwork, including State Department letters, situation reports, and confidential communications between the US Embassy in Jakarta and consulates in Indonesia. Starting in October 1965, Indonesian army officials, led by then Mayor General Suharto, oversaw a campaign of mass killings targeting Communist Party members and giving free rein to a mix of soldiers and local militias to kill anyone they considered a communist. Over the next few months into 1966, at least 500,000 people were killed. In the years since the killing, the Indonesian government has justified the massacres as a necessary defense against the Communist Party, which allegedly attempted a coup, murdering 6 army generals on 30th September 1965. Since then, Muslim extremist groups have brutally attacked and dispersed all forms of assemblies and discussions aimed at discussing these killings and bringing justice to the victims by terming them communist propaganda. A huge anti-communist rally took place in September this year, making it very difficult for the families of those killed in 1965-66 to continue seeking justice. These declassified documents will help to strengthen the report of the National Commission on Human Rights, Comnas, HAM, and also the International People Tribunal, IPT Group, for 1965 to 1966. There are particular worries that if political efforts to promote Suharto as a national hero bear fruit, then all allegations against him will be void and all investigations will be discontinued.
State Department of the United States have published the reports of massacre in Indonesia in 1965 to 1966 and for the first time have directly admitted the involvement of the United States in this horrendous massacre. Estimate of the people who have been killed during this time under the pretext that they were members of a Communist Party is minimum 500,000, but others estimate as 1 million or more. This was done under the program of clandestine operations, which was a part of the US operations and which remain a part, but which has come under severe criticism in the recent times in the United States itself. And there is a lot of material now available about such clandestine operations. At the time, there was the preoccupation that the communism is spreading in Southeast Asia, and the fear that a sphere of communism will enlarge. On that basis, there was antagonism against the Sukarno government. But Sukarno was not a communist, and he was like a leader like Nehru in India and other democratic leaders at the time of the Asia, and he was a part of the non-aligned movement. But he was not understood, thinking that under his guise and under his support, the Communist Party may take over power. This massacre was very systematically organized. A recent film, Act of Killing, by a US filmmaker, has given details about this whole massacre through people who participated in this. Even today, those who participated in the massacre have, don't hide their activity. They proudly proclaim what they did because it was made to appear that they are doing it on behalf of Indonesia. As the film shows, now that there is fear of exposure because it will undermine the whole propaganda which said that these people who were killed were very cruel people, but in fact the cruelty was the way these people were massacred. Most of them were very poor peasants, and then because of the Vietnamese situation, they misunderstood Indonesian peasants as a highly indoctrinated communist. This was the reason why the very lowest strata of from the point of view of poverty in the country was so brutally massacred. This virtually changed the whole politics of in the Southeast Asia. Perhaps the Cambodian tragedy would not have happened if not for this massacre. It was the Indonesian massacre that created a fear in the Cambodian Communist Party, which was earlier an open party working with the people, and then they realized that unless they went underground, they were not safe. So that was the beginning that devastated and destroyed Cambodia later. So this horrendous massacre need to be become a part of the global discussion on human rights, and all attempts must be made to help Indonesians to come to terms with what has happened, because without that Indonesia will not become a genuine democracy even for another 50 years or more. One of the casualties of this massive killing was the destruction of the legal system of Indonesia, and as a result today a credible court system does not exist in Indonesia. So this demands from the global human rights community a constant watch once again to get this whole discussion internationally.
In India, an infant died after his home was demolished by the Delhi Development Authority on October 30th. After serving a notice of eviction on the residents of Katputali Colony in Shadipur, New Delhi on October 25, authorities descended on the colony and started the demolition drive in the early morning of October 30th. Police baton charged and tear gassed protesting residents and activists. Even women, children and elderly were beaten up. 1-year-old Ayan, son of Jitu and Pooja, died late in the evening of October 31. Their house being destroyed on October 30th, the family had to spend the night out on the streets. Though the post-mortem was certain the cause of the death, residents believe it could have occurred either due to Ayan getting pneumonia from sleeping in the cold or from the suffocation caused by the tear gas. Another injured person was Annie Raja, the General Secretary of National Federation of Indian Women, who had rushed to the spot on getting information about the demolition drive and joined the residents in protesting. The authorities violently beat her up with sticks and dragged her away, grievously injuring her in the process. She was then left on the road bleeding and injured, as the authorities did not allow ambulances to reach the demolition site. Just Asia speaks to Annie for details.
You see, other than the denial of their livelihood and other things, the way the Delhi Development Authority, with the help of the Delhi police, unleashed brutality on the people of Katputli, and the way without any notice, proper time, and for shifting their whatever little things they have, they came with a large number of force and with all the machines to demolish. So I was also there, and we were standing very peacefully for more than 1.5 hours, and they never expected that the people will be cooperative in the sense that they will be so silent. So in order to create provocation, they first actually kicked me, and they even tried to use that steel lathis. This is the first time I am seeing two steel lathis, which are, you see, from behind the first row they will stand and they will push it, that thing in women's private part, that is from below. That is the strategy, and I actually caught hold of one of the lathi and told them that this is utter brutality, you should not try to do this and remove this from this place. But they still continued that, and at one time one policeman kicked me on my lower abdomen, so I fell down, and they lifted me and handed me over to the gundas. You must have heard that the tear gas shells were also used, and one child actually, because of that suffocation, and one child lost the life. They don't have any weapons in their hand. These people, they are the simple people, and they never expected such thing will happen. It was in the morning. The children have gone to school, and when they came back, they could see the rubbles of their houses, and they could not find their parents. So you can imagine the mental stress the children have undergone. And the parents, they were looking for their children, and it was so brutal, inhuman. I don't know. I don't have the words to express the situation there at that time. I was in their Gunda's hand for almost 1 hour, and they were dragging me, they were kicking me, and they were doing. This is the same fate with their colony people also. So this time the Delhi police was so brutal. I have seen two things. I am in Delhi for last almost 25, 26 years. I am participating. They arrested me so many occasions and all. They were even beaten me up before also. But this time two particular things. One is usage of these steel lathis, and number two is using of these gundas. So this is something happened in the capital of this country, and it is extremely condemnable.
Finally, the Urgent Appeals Weekly features 3 cases from Sri Lanka, Pakistan and Indonesia. In Sri Lanka, police officers from Watagama forcefully entered and searched a man's house without any credible evidence. For several days, the police harassed his family and accused them of drug peddling based on misinformation. No action has been taken against the responsible police officers. In Pakistan, a Shia man, Muhammad Bilal, has been disappeared by law enforcement officials. He has been disappeared twice and indicted on murder charges under frivolous grounds. A few days before his recent disappearance, Bilal had a hernia operation. To date, his whereabouts are unknown, and his family fears for his life given his state of health after surgery. Lastly, in Indonesia, without proper investigation and a lack of evidence, South Aceh police accused Mr. Abbas Rizal of illegally placing a trap in the protected forest area in South Aceh Regency. Due to a lack of evidence, the police criminally charged Sibay with illegal logging. In addition, the police sold the car of Sibay's boss, Mr. Mustafa, in order to pay bribes to high-ranking police officers to supposedly discontinue investigation of the case. That is all for this episode of Just Asia. For more on these and other issues, please visit www.humanrights.asia or www.ahlrc.asia/justasia. Thank you for watching, and see you next week.